Last night, Lizzo made history.
I just twerked and played James Madison Crystal Flute from the 1800s. We just made history tonight. Thank you to the Library of Congress for preserving our history and making history freaking cool. History is freaking cool, you guys.
Lizzo twerked and played James Madison's Crystal Flute from the 1800s. It was historic. So was the Hindenburg. So was the conquest of Constantinople. Not all historic events are good or praiseworthy. I actually kind of like Lizzo. I do. I know it's not popular on the right. I like Lizzo. I think her music is somewhat catchy. The outfits, not my thing, but the music somewhat catchy. And as far as modern musical artists go, I stan her, okay? She is a surprisingly skilled flautist. All of that is true. But Lizzo should not have been given special permission to play James Madison's flute for two reasons. First one, because Lizzo is not dignified. She could be dignified if she wanted to be, but she is not. And it is degrading to our nation for a lady simultaneously to twerk and jiggle and degrade herself and to play an historical artifact that belonged to the father of the Constitution. Second, Lizzo should not have been given special permission to play the flute because the entire performance was intended as an act of hostility toward James Madison, toward the Founding Fathers, and toward the historical American nation. I don't think Lizzo intended it as a hostile act, but the libs generally did. The New York Times reported, quote, "It was a symbolic moment as Lizzo, a hugely popular black singer, rapper, and songwriter, played a priceless instrument that once belonged to a founder whose Virginia plantation was built by enslaved black workers. And the flute had been lent to her by Carla D. Hayden, the first African American and woman to lead the Library of Congress." In other words, the performance was not to be an honor. It was set up and seen as an act of revenge against a no-good, long-dead racist and the nation that he represents. It was set up and reported as an act of liberation by a self-described victim of oppression.
I don't know what music video for good means, but I do know what your vote means, and that's a lot. Your vote means everything to me. It means everything to making a change in this country. So remember, when you're voting for your favorite artist, vote to change some of these laws that are oppressing us.
Now, Lizzo, of course, is not oppressed. And our founding fathers were not oppressors. The country they established is not evil, and both the men and the country deserve better than to be mocked with a twerk. The climate change activist, Izzy Cook, has just accidentally, on television, exemplified the hypocrisy at the heart, not just of the environmentalist movement on the left, but of the left broadly.
So we would have to apply to have like approved events to be able to fly for.
Well, that's one thing that you could look at doing.
Am I allowed to go to Fiji? Is that necessary?
In the current climate crisis, I don't think that that's necessary.
When was the last time you were on a plane?
I'm not sure. Maybe a few months ago, to be honest.
Where'd you go?
Fiji.
Izzy! Izzy! Don't you care about the climate, Izzy?
Of course I care about the climate.
Not enough. You went to... you went to Fiji. Izzy, come on, mate. Are you serious? Are you serious, Izzy?
This is, of course, the way to respond to all of the alarmism, all of the hysterics about how the world is going to end. You just sort of laugh at it. Because you can say, obviously the libs don't believe this. If the libs believed that getting on an airplane was going to destroy the entire world, then they wouldn't do it, or they're just stone cold psychopaths. But they do it. They do it all the time, and so we don't need to take it seriously. The whole Davos crew that tells us that we need to go eat bugs and we have to stop living and we have to live in tiny little pods and we can't have meat and we can't go work and we can't travel and we can't drive a car and we can't do anything anymore. That same crew, they all fly private jets halfway across the world to go on a fun ski vacation with a bunch of other elites around the world, okay? And so we don't need to take that seriously as a matter of life or death for the world. We do have to take it seriously as a political movement. But we need to start examining the real motivations here. Why is it that these very wealthy, powerful, influential people want to peddle the climate change stuff? Is it because they really believe in it? Most of the time, I don't think it is. Most of the time, I think it's a power play. It gives them more power, the technocracy more power, the international institutions more power, the handful of corporations that are wielding a lot of influence on those other institutions, it gives them a lot more power. Think about it with COVID. Why did the most powerful interests in the country push to shut down the country during COVID? Is it really because they thought that everyone was going to die if we were closer than 6 feet away from one another and we took that little hanky off our face? No, of course not. Because all of those people regularly would take the little hanky off and they would violate all the rules, and Gavin Newsom would show up to the French Laundry, and these CEOs and the oligarchs and the masters of the universe would routinely, regularly violate their own COVID rules when they thought that the cameras weren't rolling. So what is it? Is it just hypocrisy, or is it just a failure to live up to their standards? No, I think there's a little bit more than that. Think about COVID. COVID represented the largest transfer of wealth from the lower classes to the upper classes ever in the entire history of the world. Very often, there are financial motivations and power politics motivations. I was just in the Bronx yesterday. I was in this old, wonderful neighborhood I've been going to, and since I was a very little kid, we would do our grocery shopping there. And I don't know, maybe being around those Italian Americans, it gives you a little bit more of an edge. And you know, it gives you a little bit of that sense of, hold on, what's really at play here? Is someone really trying to pull one over on us? And so I think you got to just laugh at it, okay? You got to laugh at it. Then you got to examine where the real motivations are. And then you've got to be much better armed to fight back against them. Now is the time for the member block, okay? The rest of the show is continuing now. We moved Woke Wednesday to Thursday because I was on the road. So we've got a video from the New York Times. I have not seen it yet. I have been told this, even by New York Times standards, is really, really horrific. So I can't wait. That'll be great. If you don't want to miss it, if you're not a member, head on over, click the link in the description, and join us.